Hi, I'm the Goblin from the Grotto, which this channel is named, and welcome to another miniature painting diary. Diary number 4, to be exact. If you haven't been following along with the series, this is my video journal of every miniature I've ever painted in chronological order. I do sometimes post these in picture form on my Twitter, at Grotto Goblin, and recently I just uploaded the process of painting my 200th miniature in its own standalone video. So if you'd like to continue supporting the channel after watching this video, leave a like, feel free to check those other pages out, and don't forget to subscribe. Alright, in the last part, I had reached mid-August of 2019 when I was painting the available Bonesylvanians of the time. Bonesylvanians being the Reaper miniature line of big-headed little chibi characters based on classic horror movie monsters and the like. Well, after a day or so break from the last ones I painted all of these on the 16th. Most of these are all vampire themed, which takes on Dracula, Lady Dracula, and Nosferatu, named Van, Tish, and Max, respectively. All of these share the same gray skin made from orc skin, Army Painter Ash Gray, and were all washed with Nuln oil. These were all painted simultaneously with all the same colors, save for the lack of red on the Nosferatu mini and the purple added to the back of, well, I suppose the inside of Tish's cape, as I'd already given her a red dress, and if the inside of the cape had been red, it would have just gotten lost. There was also this vampire bat character named Drac. I feel like Drac and Van should have switched names, but oh well. I also realized this guy is wearing a necklace just now, like as I was editing this video. I may have noticed at the time and not cared, but as you see, I didn't really spend a lot of time painting this figure. Just kind of slapped some colors together and called it a day. I think it's partly because both Drac here and Lon, the Wolfman, have kind of a problem where their heads are so big that they just keep falling over. Both Lon and Drac have to have their noggins propped up against something pretty much wherever I display them, as just general movements will, over time, cause whatever display they're on to wobble, and then they'll fall over. It's an annoying mess to pick up. Didn't spend too much time painting Lon, though I did try to get the colors in this sort of dark but still saturated style that you might see on a movie poster for the inspiration of his character. The last mini for the day that I painted was Esme, assumed for Esmeralda. I'm really quite pleased with this one. I decided to go with the classic green witch. Spent a lot more time on this one, and it actually ended up being probably one of my favorites of the entire Bonesylvanian set. And with that chunk out of the way, only a few days later on the 18th, I finished off Reaper's Bonesylvanian line, at least the one available at the time. First up was Gus, the Ghost. Not a lot to him, I just dry brushed with various shades of blues, grays, and whites until I was happy. I like the sculpt. It's giving classic chain-rattling Casper the Unfriendly Ghost vibes to me. The penultimate figure was Jacques, who's clearly based on The Fly. He's a bit of an oddball figure for the rest of the set, as the rest are more or less usable in a fantasy environment, but Jacques is clearly a modern-day abomination. As a fantasy-focused person, I wasn't really looking forward to this mini, but I actually had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun painting his big head and big eyes and that little tie and his cute little lab coat, and finding just the right shade of khaki for his pants and his little shoes and stuff. This was also the first time I painted something with a clear glass container holding some kind of liquid. I know I'm going to have to do that again in the future, so this was good practice for that. Finally, we ended the whole line off with Lou, aka Cthulhu, the largest of the Bonesylvanians. Lou is probably the most usable in general gameplay as some sort of star spawn, maybe even a youngling star spawn. Pretty simple paint scheme for this guy. Probably a mix of being both tired and not really wanting to do much with him. I did want to give him a nice gloss coat so he would seem shiny and wet all the time. But yeah, with that, I finished off my Bonesylvanians. Maybe one day I'll go back and tune up a few that I missed the little bits on or didn't quite paint exactly how I wanted. Or I'll just pick up a few duplicates and just try again on those different models. But in the meantime, I'm still pretty happy with the ones that I've created. I definitely recommend anyone just getting started with painting miniatures to pick up sets like this with larger proportions and fun, quirky themes. It'll just be a lot of fun. You'll be able to branch out and experiment without feeling like you have to nail something super realistic to put on the table. After emptying my pile of shame of Bonesylvanians, the next day I painted 2 more minis, the first being Gug, Eldritch Horror. Now, personally, I find Gug to be both scary and very cute. Sure, the split elbow, limb, hug, pose, and the gaping maw and the slimy tentacles, it's all very off-putting, but how can anyone resist those baby blue eyes? Yes, Gug's one of my favorites in both sculpt and paint scheme. Now, Gug is based off of some Lovecraftian horror, but there wasn't a whole lot to go on of consistent color schemes, so I kind of winged it with what I thought would work, and the swampy green and the gray tentacles, that all made sense to me. The bright blue eyes, I don't remember seeing that anywhere, but I just really like that color, and I so rarely get to use it. But to tie it back into the rest of the palette, I painted the egg sacs, brain matter, sensory organs, whatever is right behind the eyes. That sort of icky purple color, and glossed that up to match with the tentacles. Don't know what that is, but it's pretty gross. Yeah, Gug is easily one of my favorite paint jobs, as well as one of my favorite minis in my entire collection. Just a big fan of this guy all around. Plus, he's so cute. Following Gug, I painted the Hive Warden from Reaper's Chronoscope line. I painted this to resemble a sort of alien that you might see on the cover of a classic comic book, but I actually intended to use this as a sort of young elder brain. Younger brain? I don't know. It's actually kind of difficult to paint this guy, as on all of his little tentacle arms, or actually rather big tentacle arms, are these little hooks that I tried my best to paint in a sort of reddish bone color. But it's really hard to reach all of that with a paintbrush just because of how mangled the tentacles are. The camera doesn't really pick it up well, but on the brain, I did give it that icky pink color, and then I red wash. And the red wash is kind of going away in the camera, but in person it looks a lot more icky and maybe bloody, like there's blood in there. This thing has a sort of harness with an eye on it. I wouldn't guess that's an actual part of its anatomy. I imagine that's some kind of object affixed to it to allow it to see. I originally attempted to put a pupil on there, and then decided both that I didn't really feel like painting a pupil, and I think it would have looked better if you couldn't quite tell where it was looking. And of course, to tie that really bright green back into things, I used that bronze that I love on the harness, and a bit of blue, little navy blue on the little mouth tentacles just below there. Sort of give the red and blue and the green its own place in the color scheme there. Looks like a couple days later, I painted the Horned Hunter. Although to me, I look at this and see Lure, a character from my home game. The party encountered Lure on a caravan journey through a stretch of forest that actually bears his name, as Lure is sort of a god or demigod, but he appears to be trapped on the mortal plane, he still has some power, but only really within his woodland realm. After helping clear some of the unsavory folk that were taking up residence in his woods, the party was bestowed a number of gifts by Allure, including a pair of vine-strap hand axes, a wand of vines, an enchanted sapling, which the party eventually planted at their homestead, not quite sticking around to seeing all of its effects, a magical pan flute that summons woodland creatures, and an intelligent animal companion in the owl Ringo, who I also have a mini for and may one day showcase in this series as well. I had a very busy day on the 27th, starting with Athak, Undead Knight. I really like the shield Reaper gave to this vampire knight looking figure. It's got that crazy tongue coming out. Really sells the image of fear and agony or some dark debauchery. Yeah, it's definitely not a character I would want to mess with. From what I could tell, the bits of flesh that were sticking out didn't actually seem to have flesh, they were bone, so I give him like skeletal hands and such. The cloak he has here and the helmet really gave me vampire vibes though, so I wanted to go with a deep sort of crimson red, but didn't really have the right color to match, so I did a lot of experimenting and eventually stumbled upon this coat. Now this is one of the Women of Dreadmere models, and I was really inspired by this sculpt specifically because of the pouch she was carrying. It gave me the vibes of someone returning with a bounty to collect, as in someone's severed head likely chopped off with that axe of hers. And her coat and boots share this fur lining, so that informed me maybe she was from a colder climate. So all that came together and I painted this sort of northern tracker and bounty hunter. I ended up giving the base the snow treatment and had some blood dripping from the sack onto the snow, which I think is a really nice touch that tells a story with this piece. Shout out to Reaper's Bob Rodolphi for sculpting such a unique and inspiring character. Next up is the Terrorfish. Now, I don't know that this would really be considered a fish, but a terror, it most certainly is. I attempted to give the eyes of this model a touch of glow-in-the-dark paint. Sometimes catches and can glow. I remember when I first painted this, it was a lot stronger, and I had it on a little wall shelf, and if I squinted my eyes just right, I could see two little glowing dots. But over time, it's faded, and I've gone in and tried to brighten up the glowing spot, and now it just kind of doesn't do anything. Oh well. Next up, we have the Razormouth. I'm not really sure how such a creature would close its mouth. It doesn't really seem to exactly have teeth, just these razor sharp growths all around that part of its body. And its head is basically its body. I'd imagine something of this size would probably just digest things in its mouth and would extrude any of the excess mineral buildup from that process up into the top and bottom of its mouth, forming those mineral deposits that make up what appear to be teeth. I added a little bit of gold paint to the back scales there. It's hard to pick up on camera, but in person it adds this gold shimmer effect to its back. And given the shape of the scales, it kind of looks like coins. So I can imagine in the dark, the glint of gold on these might fool some less perceptive adventurers into thinking that they're catching a glimpse of a treasure pile. That'd certainly be grounds for quite a nasty surprise. Finally, our last two minis of that day and this video are Torlin and Buffo. Torlin appears to be a gator folk barbarian with quite a pack. He's got this massive axe with this hourglass rune on it, which I highlighted in bronze. I actually highlighted a number of things on his person with that Balthazar gold bronze that I used a ton when I first started painting minis. This includes his metal eye guard or patch, and the numerous buttons and plates on his belt and loincloth. In addition to possibly missing an eye, he's also got these chains wrapped around his wrist, which leads me to believe that he has escaped from somewhere. In addition to his thick scaly hide, he's got quite the set of teeth, four of which actually seem to be less like teeth from his actual mouth and more like bone that he's pierced into his lower jaw. Yeah, this is quite the character. I would definitely use this as an important NPC or villain, or even a player character given the right opportunity. He'd fit well with the gator folk from the fan favorites set, which perhaps one day soon might be hitting retail shelves. We'll keep an eye on it, but if you want to see what those look like in the meantime, feel free to check out that video in my Bones Fight Breakdown playlist. And last but not least, we have Buffo. To me, this Frogman seems like perhaps an unusually large bullywug who maybe makes a living out in the swamplands, guiding wayward travelers through or back to the road, clearing the muddy paths, lurking threats, and bits of overgrown vegetation. It's a little hard to see, but I'm really proud of his eyes. I think I nailed those froggy pupils. Also really like the blue wraps and the leather apron he's got there. I think those colors really nicely complement his green skin. This is one of those figures that I've been really looking forward to including in a game someday as a basis for a really unique NPC character. Just the stuff that he's carrying and sort of stance that he has, it really lends itself to a really unique encounter. And that's it, folks. Next time we'll be getting into a few larger minis, perhaps a dragon, and the first figures of 2020. Do you have any favorites of this lot, or have you painted any of these yourself? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like. It really helps the channel grow, and it means a lot to see your support. Some suggested videos should be appearing on the screen now, and of course, there's loads to find in the description below, or on my Twitter at Grotto Goblin. Alrighty, hope to catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one, and let's go paint some minis.